Hey everyone, and welcome to a special very late night recording of Desrin Does. I'm Desrin, and today we're doing another patch notes review for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen's Season 2 mid-season patch that dropped on April 26, 2024, while hopefully not waking up my roommates in the process. So this one has been in the oven quite a while, and it's come out much later than we expected for a mid-season patch, but as you'll see, it comes with some pretty astounding amounts of updates, and it might be an even bigger update than the initial Season 2 patch, if we're being honest. So before we get started, like I said, there's a ton of updates to the point where this video is huge, and I honestly don't expect everybody to want to sit through every single change, especially the massive class update section with over 100 notes just for class changes. So I'll be separating and organizing these notes into YouTube chapters. So if you're on YouTube and you want to skip right to what you're interested in, I've got those there for you, either timestamped in the description or on the little scrub bar in the video player for you to just skip right ahead if you want. Also, the background footage, it's just a bunch of screenshots and random clips from before this patch. I haven't had time to record stuff from this patch yet, but yeah, spoiler alert, there's been quite a few notable visual improvements that should be in the next B-roll video and make it even better. So make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss that, and I'll try to get that cranked out as soon as possible now that the patch is finally here. Anyway, this is probably going to be the biggest patch video yet, so let's get right into it. All right, so this is going to be for build 0.13.913, and let's get started with the known issues. So, crafted tools and items using a dropped component in their construction are not always properly receiving their stats. This has been an issue for a while, and I think they're just still working on it, unfortunately. So, careful with your crafted items. Buff and debuff icons will sometimes show negative timers and remain on the UI after the effect's duration has expired. Again, this has been around for a while. It doesn't seem to affect many people, though. Animations and sound effects may sometimes play while skinning animals. Again, not a really high priority thing, so not a big deal. Big one for me is that group harvesting is still currently not functioning. So you still got to only hit those nodes solo. I can't wait for this to be back in. It actually affects gameplay quite a bit. All right, now let's get to general updates. NPCs will now turn to face the player when they begin to sense them. And depending on the NPC, might slowly start moving towards that player before they decide to attack them. This is actually kind of huge. This is, I think, the beginning of a really good body pulling system, and this should help a lot with kind of controlling your pulls a bit. Also, NPCs will now be more aware of enemies all around them for 30 seconds after leaving combat, and provided they're still alive. This is kind of interesting. So this means any enemies that are kind of coming back after maybe wiping a party or something are going to be ultra aware, so be careful with that. Pets should no longer break mesmerize. Everybody's so happy about this. And the caster of the mez will now receive a message in their chat window to notify them of who broke their mez if someone breaks it. So the game will totally tattle on you if you break mez. Again, very huge update. The /camp command is now distinct from the /quit and /exit commands. So when you /camp, it's going to begin a camp process where you sit in, you have to not get hit or anything for 30 seconds, and that'll have you leave the game. The big thing is, if you just /quit or /exit, it's going to immediately disconnect you from the game, but your character is going to stay in the world for 30 seconds. And, during that time, you might be killed by nearby enemies. So this is the end of people just /quitting or leaving, logging out when a fight's not looking too good, so they can log right back in and res everybody. This means you're going to actually have to play the game, so be careful out there. Increase the maximum distance that group members are awarded XP and loot rights. I've heard that this is like more than triple the distance it was previously. So this is huge because pullers were actually not getting XP because they were, out pulling more mobs. And this is a really big deal for a lot of people, I think. Channeled spells now have a 50% chance to be interrupted by direct damage. We'll see how this one plays out. Yeah, reduced NPC flee speed a bit. So this was still, I would say, just barely too fast in the last patch. And so I think making it just a tiny bit slower is probably going to put it just in the right spot. So I can't wait. All right, this is a silly tease one, but added ice and snow surface types. I think we all know what that's getting ready for. Reduced runtime memory requirements, like 1 to 1.5 gigabytes, depending on the area. A big performance increase, and also improved grass rendering performance. So the grass is really fuzzy, as you'll see eventually. And some people really like it. I don't know if it's intentional, but it does definitely seem to be running a lot better, and I'll keep noting that as we go along. I popped in for like 5 minutes, and it is running way better. So class updates. This is pretty big. I'll read their little blurb here for you guys. In order to help us to make sure all abilities are useful and bring the game to a better baseline point of balance, we've decided to disable mastery again. In spirit of that, here's a list of changes to help bring more abilities in line with each other and other classes. So obviously let them know about the changes. They're going to be making more adjustments. And the whole idea is they want a good baseline before they put mastery back in. And so make sure to check the Discord, class feedback section, give your thoughts. And let's break this up into all the different classes and the updates for each. So, starting with the Shaman, Scorch Fog, Headwinds, and Weathering all had their hit rate increased. This is huge because it feels really bad to cast a debuff, which, again, they're not super effective, it seems, and then just waste your mana. So this is super right to do. Maybe people will start debuffing again. Hurry the Pass base cooldown is set to 15 seconds. I think that is like half what it was. I'll have to check. Again, this is without mastery though. So yeah, Hurry the Pass is very strong though. They also made it instant cast and off global cooldown. So it's kind of like an emergency thing. Now Replenish got completely changed. It's now a channeled heal. It has a base mana cost of 3 and then 2 per second for up to 8 seconds. And it also receives bonus healing depending on which mantle, which is the main heal over time spell, which is on the target. So I can't wait to test this out and see how it feels. Speaking of Mantle of the River was reduced to 15 mana, and it scales with level properly now. This is pretty huge. Now it might actually be worth using for the mana. And its cast time is reduced to 1.5 seconds as well. Mantle of the Mist, Stream, and River all had their spell power scaling increase, which is interesting because it already seemed to scale really well with spell power. And so this might make shamans kind of fight with wizards for gear a little bit more now. We already were pretty hungry for spell power gear, so it's even more so now. Shaman damage over time damage was reduced across the board. I think we all kind of saw this coming, but I will miss being a quote-unquote DPS shaman, just stacking a bunch of dots. Also, slashing techniques have been removed. Again, they took out axes, as you'll see later. Adderfang cost was reduced to 1,000 readiness, same with Stoke Ember and Spirit Strike. Also, Adderfang should now properly scale when the target's affected by the poison, the sting or strike line. Also, Stoke Ember should properly scale when the target's affected by the crown line. So honestly, I'm pretty jazzed about the changes. The nerfs make sense. The change to replenish is kind of interesting, and the buffs to hit rate are pretty good. Lowering the cost on the techniques is really nice, but I do note that there's still no fix for the crushing techniques, which kind of makes me a little sad, since those are honestly the most interesting ones. They're meant to replenish resources. I think the first one's just for the shaman, and the second one is for the group. And they literally just don't work. I think the first one you get actually uses your mana instead. So yeah, I'll have to check and see if these are just fixed and they didn't note it, or if they're still broken and they just cost less. So I don't know. All right, the Cleric. Dampen Magic. Hit rate was increased. Again, very nice. Censure low-end damage was increased, and also the mana cost was reduced to 8. Also, Rebuke's low-end damage was increased, and its mana cost was reduced to 15. Conviction cooldown was reduced to 90 seconds. And here's a bunch of scaling that was increased, and this is all scaling with spell power, just like the Shaman. So that's for Celestial Flicker, Celestial Glow, Celestial Light, and Celestial Dawn. Luminous Surge mana cost was reduced to 20, and here's a big one, Ward Undeath. The low-end damage was greatly increased. Also, the Cleric's got a new ability. It's called Bond of Protection. It says it's off GCD, and it comes in when you get to Restoration 25. Now it's 8 mana to receive 20% of the target's damage for 8 seconds and a 45-second cooldown. This is an actual intercession skill, so I'm very excited about that. And also the target can only be bonded once every 45 seconds. Also another new ability, Divine Favor, targetable buff, and it comes in when you hit Restoration 57. And it sounds like it's just a melee attack heal proc. So you put this on someone and it procs a heal. Also, just the same, all their slashing techniques have been removed, and readiness has been reduced to 1,000 for Dampen Magic and Focus Swing. And also Focus Swing now properly adds the 20% spell crit chance for 4 seconds. So honestly, I'm really liking the sound of the Cleric with these changes. The addition of an intercession spell really just makes me happy, and it feels very much like the Cleric is leaning into that role of being a protector via barriers or just kind of throwing themselves in front of the enemy, so to speak. The buff that makes melee attacks proc heals, it's a little questionable to me since it's kind of getting into the druid territory, but I'm sure it'll feel great. Overall, I think the Cleric got just super buffed with this patch. The Dire Lord, they removed the basic techniques, and now you actually just get Ready Blade. It's just learned automatically at level 1. Then Insulting Slash is learned at any weapon skill reaching level 7. Arcane Tear is learned at any weapon skill reaching 10. And then Rune Carver is learned at any weapon skill reaching 31. Also, Eviscerate is learned at any weapon skill reaching 55. So here's a big one. Removed Essence Harvester, both from the vendor, and it's now learned at weapon skill 76. And this one's probably going to sting for a lot of Dire Lords, because that's pretty high level for what I think a lot of Dire Lords consider a fundamental ability. Also, reduced Essence Harvester's damage by 50% and increased the base duration to 20 seconds. So lower damage, but it lasts longer. The life tap hit rate was greatly increased, though. Also, the damage should now scale properly. Vital Cage duration was increased to 4 seconds. That's great. Dire Grip's cost was reduced to 200. Sanguine Shield's cost was reduced to 250. And Boil Blood's cost was reduced to 200. Also, Deafening Whisper, that cost was reduced to 200 as well. And the cooldown was reduced to 20 seconds. Overall, I think this is going to sound like a pretty hard nerf, But I think the buffs to the other abilities and kind of the adding and rearranging of more abilities it's going to overall kind of make the Dire Lord feel a little bit more maybe balanced. But we'll see. All right, the Warrior. So Shield Slam now generates more threat. That's great. Shield Slam was increased to a 20-second cooldown, though. Also, Storm should now properly generate a battle point, and Rageful Shout no longer consumes a battle point. Rageful Shout's cooldown was reduced to 60 seconds, and Mocking Blow's threat was increased. Furious Howl's duration and cooldown changed to 60 seconds, which they say is temporary. Interesting. Also a bunch of stuff for Strike of Breaking. It was removed from the vendor because now it's just learned whenever you hit weapon skill of 7, so like level 2. Strike of Breaking was also increased to a 8-second cooldown, which is huge. Like I think that's double what it was. And it now scales with strength, but it also deals increased threat. Now also Mocking Blow is just automatically learned at any weapon skill reaching 10, so it's a little earlier than it was. Cross Strike is learned at any weapon skill reaching 31, and Disarming Slash is learned at any weapon skill reaching 55. So these changes, I think, should really help the Warriors with threat, as you saw a lot of increased threat. But unfortunately, I think they still kind of just remain the most incomplete class in the game. And I'm not sure if more people are going to want to get in and play Warriors because of these changes, in spite of them looking, pretty solid balance-wise. Part of the fun of the Warriors previously, in my opinion, was the spamming of Strike of Breaking and getting those armor debuffs up. But we'll just see how it plays now. I'll hop on mine for the last 2 weeks of the season and feel it out. All right, the Paladin. Bunch of stuff for the Paladin. So they removed basic melee techniques, like a lot of these, and Disciplined Swing is now just automatically learned at level 1. Removed Faithful Strike from the vendor because now it is learned at any weapon skill reaching 7, and its readiness cost was removed, but it's got an 8-second cooldown, and the hit chance was increased, and the healing was increased to 80% of the damage dealt. Now, Condemning Blow is learned at any weapon skill reaching 10. Flanking Blow is learned at any weapon skill reaching 31. Devout Strike is learned at any weapon skill reaching 55. And Righteous Chomp is learned at any weapon skill reaching 76. Again, quite a late game one there. Righteous Flame proc rate was increased to 100%. The duration was also decreased to 15 seconds. Also, Righteous Flame was increased to a 60-second cooldown, and the cost was increased to 200 Wrath. Again, feeling pretty good about these changes. I'm starting to see kind of a theme of increasing hit chances, across the board for a lot of classes, and I'm really curious kind of how that's going to feel for kind of everybody. Now, buffing Paladin healing is kind of funny, though, considering how powerful they kind of, already were. But I think the cooldowns are probably going to help balance that out a bit. So we'll see. The Rogue. So Shadow Walk is now a stance. This is awesome. I know several rogues that were asking for this. Unfortunately, there's no key binding yet. So you have to click it just like the monk gates, unfortunately. But it is no longer taking up that slot. Now, Umbral Edge hit chance was increased. Opportunism is increased to 500 readiness, so it's twice as much as it was. Backstab base damage was increased to 200%. Also, Waylay base damage was increased to 200%. Jokingly call that, frontal backstab. Anyway, Blackjack Kick was removed from the global cooldown and increased to a 16-second cooldown. And the damage was reduced to 50%. Pretty big nerf there. Blackjack Kick now provides 2 opportunity from the side or the rear now, though. Corrosive Brew, cast time was removed. Sprint to the Shadows should now work properly. Escape Artist should also now work properly. Caltrop duration persists for 3 seconds after the NPC leaves the radius. So, while I'm sure, rogues everywhere are kind of happy that stealth, which is a core mechanic, doesn't take up a utility slot anymore, not having a keybind, I think it's going to be a little rough because you're going to be having to click that a lot. So hopefully they get that in soon. But also, on that note, hopefully the monks get one for their stances too, because it's pretty rough. Again, it kind of feels like, buffs across the board, even Blackjack Kick, how they can gain that 2 opportunity from in combat, not in stealth, which is, that's probably going to change a lot in spite of it, getting the damage lowered. And while it might not seem huge, having caltrops persist even just for 3 seconds, it's just a massive quality of life update. I think any rogue that's trying to slow mobs that are fleeing is like super happy about this. Now the monk. So Wandering Fist, hit rate increased. Wandering Fist now scales with strength as well. Bunch of stuff for Rock Stance, so it now adds scaling AC. It properly adds block and parry. It's reduced to only 200 chi. And now it reduces your attack speed by 50% instead of just disabling it completely. Union cooldown was reduced to 2 minutes, and the cost was also reduced to 200 chi. Harmonious Frame cost was reduced to 250 chi. Backflip cost was reduced to 250 chi. And Focus Chi reduced to 400 chi, and the damage was increased to 150%. It was really big. Gate of Anger also, they decreased the threat that you get from that just slightly, they say. Now, I think fixing Rock Stance is pretty awesome for any monks that have to do some off-tanking, except for that tiny little threat nerf. But when you were in Rock Stance, you just pull threat regardless. I understand the threat nerf there. But really, it's just like buffs across the board. Lowering so much of the costs on the monk is kind of crazy because I feel like the costs aren't that high already. You can kind of spam quite a bit, but I guess now you can really kind of just go for it. Can't wait to jump on my monk and try it out. Enchanter. So big stuff for the Enchanter. First of all, Lyris Calm. The duration was increased to 5 seconds. Also, Mass Hallucination and all Mesmerize spells have additional hit rate or increased hit rate. Same with Forceful Will, hit rate was increased. Commanding Will also increased. Bunch of reductions to their technique costs. So Delayed Wound, Mana Leak, Confusing Blow, and Dazzle cost all reduced to 1,000 readiness. I think there were 1,500 before. Also, the Mana Leaks, Mana Drain is unfortunately just waiting on a feature, so that might not be working. Also, fixed the Chaotic Imbuement proc, and this is a big one. Discord now reduces cast speed by 25%, and it has unlimited targets and a 2-minute duration. And Mental Fatigue reduces cast speed by 50%, and it only has 1 target and a 5-minute duration. So a lot of buffs, and the biggest one that we're all going to really feel, though, that's not a buff, is the Discord and Mental Fatigue nerfs. But come on, guys, like the enchanters were making like 2-second abilities take like 10 seconds to cast. It was super broken. So this is a very rightful nerf, if I do say so. All right, the Wizard. So Sure Spell and Overcharge should now stack properly. Sure Spell now adds 15 hit rating instead of just 25% hit rating. So I don't know if that's a buff or a nerf. It sounds kind of like a nerf because they've been having some trouble getting Sure Spell in a good place. But we'll see how that feels. And now Overcharge now scales with level. Also, Mana Skin's AC all scales with level. Mana Skin also calculates the damage absorbed after mitigation rather than before, so that's a buff. Phoenix Fire healing amount was fixed. I guess that was a decimal issue. A bunch of techniques were reduced to 1,000 readiness, so that's going to be Enveloping Flame, Enveloping Lightning, Frigid Terrain, Burning Soil, and Lightning Slash and Frost Slash, all reduced to 1,000 readiness. For Burning Soil, I wonder if this was fixed though, because since a lot of these don't actually seem to do much damage and might not even be like worth using. So I know I'll have to ask our resident wizards how that's feeling after the patch in case that was adjusted too. Ember Arrow's dot will no longer land if the DD portion is resisted. A little sneaky thing there. Wizards, as they say, saw the most improvement from the resist changes in the last patch, so they're not going to do any further changes until they see how they've kind of been impacted by the mastery removal. So, and obviously, Sure Spell was pretty broken in the past, so hopefully they finally got it into a reasonable place now, where it's still useful, but not like crazy. I think the biggest one is just the overcharge scaling with level, and I think that's pretty cool, and hopefully it'll help Wizards out quite a bit. All right, now that we've got through the class updates, let's get to some item updates. The stack sizes for most crafted potions has been increased to 10. Now, I've heard that things like the mild antidotes still only stack to 5, unfortunately, but, I'll have to check that when I get in game. Feathers gained from woodworking, now tradable. Stack sizes for a bunch of the refined crafting materials have now been increased to 30, which is really nice. That's going to be, metal lumps, nuggets, lumber, yarn, twine, all those things. The schematic for the medium storage box, it's now correctly named, should properly display when crafting. And the descriptions of several food items have been updated to match their effects, which is interesting because I didn't know any of them were wrong, but I'll have to check on that. Stack sizes for several dropped items used in scavenging have been increased, and I hope this is a lot of them, since they really tended to clog up your inventory quite a bit, and a lot of times people just wouldn't loot them. Sale prices on some items dropped by higher level humanoid NPCs has been rebalanced slightly. I'll have to check on what that means. Axes are no longer usable by clerics and shamans, as we noted previously, but this one does hurt a bit just because I honestly use the axe on the shaman usually until I get a better weapon, even sometimes as late as the teens, just because the technique was really powerful. But yep, no more. Also, existing pole arms they're no longer usable by dire lords. So instead, they're going to get a pole axe designation, and that's going to be added in a future update. And weapons of that specific type will be usable by dire lords once they're available. This keeps with their theming. Honestly, I don't know any dire lords that were using pole arms anyway, so whatever. For tasks, a quick one is just the scavenging schematic for the task Fox or Paintbrush. It's been updated. Uses woodland spider silk instead of gathered silk because, as we'll see later, that's been changed a bit. So if you have that task, just make sure to abandon it and get it back again, and you'll get the updated schematic. For gathering, so first off, we got for skinning, spider silk may no longer be gathered from spiders that are level 15 or below. You'll have to go hunt some larger, more dangerous spiders, and those can be harvested for their silk after they're defeated. So I kind of wonder what low-level spiders drop now, if you can skin them at all. Now, for crafting, first of all, the weight values of crafted items that use both components and other materials in their construction should no longer add that weight to their final product. I didn't even know this happened, but that could get pretty wild. Glad that's fixed. For smelting, surface ores such as casperite and padrium now yield slightly less raw materials when smelted. Now, underground ores like hardened casperite or tascium and slitheril, those actually will provide better smelting yields for those same resources. So kind of incentivizing people to go to the dangerous places to get their materials rather than, just kind of wandering around the overworld. Now, woodworking. The skill requirements for many higher tier woodworking schematics has been slightly reduced in preparation for future season releases. So, and Nefel has us note that materials used in these schematics might not be available in game for some time. So, woodworking did just get a big update not too long ago. So, I actually have yet to check that out. And I just think about it. I got all my crafting done in season 1, basically. So, alchemy. Flux distillation now yields 3 alchemical flux per combine. Nice little quality of life thing. All right, we've actually got some audio patch notes thanks to PVL. So this is really exciting because I know a lot of this stuff has been kind of waiting for a while, and I'm really glad it's finally in the game. But first of all, some new sound effects for some encounters. They call this Phase 1, but that's going to be for the Panther, Werewolf, Wolfkin, Griffin, and Wyvern. Also, new sound effects and visual effects for Karagos, and that's the Drake that they spawned for the stress test. But, maybe it'll show up somewhere else again soon, huh? New sound effects for some environments, and that's going to be for Mad Run specifically, and then just general night sound effects, general Thronefast day effects as well. Also, some generic kind of spell sound effects. Just can't wait to hear that. Also, new music for Avendir's Pass Village, Demeth. Also, new Avendir's Pass Time of Day music. They also reworked the combat intensity music, and also a music system rework for the intro song of a zone. They've added a new audio ducking system between combat music and sound effects, so hopefully that's more balanced. They did a little rework on voiceovers, so there's now a lower probability of playback on encounters and players. Also a rework on combat music transitions. Now there's also a bug fix with the audio manager managing the wrong zone, which apparently happened when you died and then respawned, assuming in another zone. Bug fix for footsteps that were lost, and a bug fix on excessive amounts of UI objects, basically. And they did some mixing for reverb, which they say Phase 1 out of 3, and mixing just for the whole game. So a lot of audio updates. Cannot wait to experience this in-game. Also got a few miscellaneous updates here. Now, the vulnerable state should properly be consumed when a target receives magical damage. Now, this is really interesting since until now, vulnerable was more of like a debuff that just increased damage taken by like 10%. Now, monks, they could kind of apply this all the time, like 100% uptime, which was a huge boost to group damage, but apparently it's just meant for one ability. I gotta kind of check this out. Also, NPC's explosive windup can now be CC'd, enchanters and other enjoy. Also, Sonic Screech's blurred vision debuff was adjusted more appropriately. This is probably like the roughest debuff in the game because it made bats really unappealing to fight because, if they landed the debuff, you basically just couldn't hit them until it expired. So I'm really glad that's adjusted. All right, let's get to the big list of bug fixes. So the alchemist should now properly sell alchemy tools for making stain and glue for woodworking stuff. Extremely large snakes should now drop their intended items. Spore beetles can no longer be skinned to receive tattered pelts. Orphan hatchlings can no longer be skinned to receive spider silk. Supply crates will no longer provide invalid crafting materials from earlier versions of the game. I had this happen to me once. Also fixed a bug where players were being allowed to start gathering from the same gathering node. Now remember, group gathering is still not back in the game, unfortunately. So this bug was actually kind of just a cosmetic thing, since one person would actually just look like they were helping, but really they wouldn't get any loot. It just kind of was an appearance thing. Now, fixed a bug where a player wasn't allowed to start the skinning process again if the skinning process had been interrupted previously. Had that happen to me. Fix for one case where pets were teleporting to their master instead of moving to them normally. That fixed an issue where pets weren't turning their face towards that target. This was kind of a funny one in the last patch. They just kind of attacked but sideways. Fixed a case where pets would sometimes not follow their master. Fixed for another case where chests would be left open. I hope this fixed chests finally, because the in-world chests were kind of unfortunate. They were pretty much broken for the last patch and a half. Also fixed an issue where the clouds would move rapidly across the sky at certain times of the day. I think we've seen this. It's pretty funny. But it did also seem to cause a lot of lag, so hopefully that's helping that. The lost crewman can now move about the cabin, as it were. I have no idea what that is. I think that's named, actually. The shared cooldown on offensive potions should now be 3 minutes in all cases. And God of Pharaoh should now properly attempt to defend himself in all circumstances when adventurers assault him. People were maybe abusing something there. The adventuring hotbar will now automatically be displayed if the player enters combat after being switched to a gathering hotbar. You had to kind of manually do this to get this to be broken earlier, but because it did switch automatically previously, but you could get it to not. But that's fixed. Fixed sprint to the shadows and escape artists being removed immediately after activation, as well as their functionality getting fixed, as we talked about in the rogue section. Fixed an issue where some mobs were seeing through Shadow Walk when they shouldn't have. Now, this fix is kind of one of the big ones that I was waiting for in this patch before I start recording B-roll, since it meant I couldn't record in a lot of the fun places because I would just die, right? So really glad that's fixed. Also changes to make it not rain or snow inside caves and buildings. That was kind of a funny thing, but hopefully that's fixed. Nameplate should now be turned off when the UI is hidden. Hey, look, this is kind of the other thing I was waiting for before recording. So as you can see in the background, nameplates weren't disappearing when you turn the UI off. So kind of distracting for making good pre-roll. Also fixed a bug where the current health and mana text of the character sheet was only correct if those values changed while the character sheet was open. Fixed a UI rounding display bug, which caused some numerical stat totals in the character sheet to appear less than they should. Also fixed absorb shields not properly displaying in the UI. I really, really hope this kind of cleans things up a bit. Really eager to see how this worked out. And all right, guys, biggest part of the patch, fixed buff stacking. This is a huge thing. People were abusing this so hard, getting like literally like 8 to 10 of the same buff on them. And it definitely the biggest kind of exploit of the last patch, maybe. So glad that's finally fixed. Fixed codex showing wrong required levels for abilities. Fixed some rendering issues at certain quality levels. Also fixed light flashes when transitioning between day and night. I think the day and night transitions are still pretty like immediate. So hopefully that gets smoothed out over time. But at least the whole your camera adjusting to the light is fixed. Fixed large fog volumes not loading from far enough away, which caused fog to kind of suddenly appear around you. Fixed a rare audio bug where NPCs would kill itself when it does its own cast. Kind of funny. Fixed some global audio states that were getting lost and transitioning between zones many times. Also fixed being able to remove an ability while casting it. Now this is a huge exploit as well, since it pretty much allowed you to circumvent the LAS, which is a core game mechanic. So no longer can you cast a spell and then just swap it off your bar and have it still apply. So also fixed corpses potentially moving while dead. I wish I had seen this, but I haven't. And that is the end of the official patch notes, but I wanted to add a few things that I had either heard or saw myself. First really noticeable thing is there's some new rock textures between a lot of visual updates that it's kind of hard to put your finger on, so I'll just say there's, improved lighting, improved effects. There might be even some new spell effects. I haven't confirmed this yet, but I'm pretty sure those made it in, so I'll have to check on that. I think I mentioned already, but performance, even just in the 5 minutes I was in game and hearing from other people, it sounds like performance is just way up across the board, which is super cool. If check your frame rate, it seems to just be way better, way more consistent too. Also kind of a cosmetic thing-ish, but night seems way brighter to me. I'm going to talk to some other people and see if, they're noticing the same thing. Make sure you recalibrate when you patch and get everything where it's supposed to be. But overall, it seemed like night was just super bright because that's when I popped in game. And yeah. Also, I've been hearing that time to kill was apparently really noticeably increased. So I've kind of yet to confirm how much, but I'm assuming that the balance pass that they've been talking about happened, like the enemy balance pass. So weird that that's not in the notes if that is the case, but I'm really eager to check that out. But yeah, that is kind of it. Finally, we got through it all. Yeah, for a mid-season patch, this one's pretty crazy, and it goes to show why it's been taking this long. So I'm not sure what this means for Season 3, which is coming in just 2 weeks now, but it's come just in time for Champions to get in for Season 2, and so hopefully they enjoy it. Again, now that this is dropped, I'll start putting together that big, Season 2 ambient B-roll video for the history books. I'm also possibly going to be doing a big, shot-for-shot video comparing Season 1 and Season 2, but that'll probably take a bit more time. It's definitely a lot more time-consuming to make, so hold tight. And, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you think I deserve it, like the video, comment below to help the patch notes kind of get out there to more people. And, of course, thank you all so much for watching and listening. And with that, I'm going to get a bit of sleep, hopefully. And so have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.